Window of Opportunity, A New Beginning by J.D. Hoff. As the door opened, Samantha walked in and sat down beside her new friend, George. George, who had the look of years of wisdom on his face, couldn't help but to see the look of sorrow in Samantha's eyes. Wanting to take Samantha's mind away from her troubles, if only for a few minutes, George asked Samantha if she knows about the window of opportunity. Samantha, looking curious at George, says, "What is this window of opportunity that you speak of?" George adjusts his seating and says, "Little lady, years ago, when I was young lad, I watched the men in the field as they rode around herding the cattle, whooping and hollering as they sat tall on the trusty equestrian mounts, always seeming so happy to be out in the fresh air, spending the time with friends while they provide for their family. I would sit there for hours at a time in total awe of their magnificent ability to turn 100 or more of the creatures in any given direction. To me, it was simply breathtaking. I would go to bed at night dreaming of what it would be like to join them as they trotted about, moving the cattle to and fro, knowing that if only I was given the chance, I would be one of the best. One day, I heard that the men were looking for a helper. Oh, how excited I was! I cleaned myself up to look my very best. I would need to stand in line with so many others, and only one of us was to hold the key to a new way of life. A kind gentleman named Bill walked into the group of us. I was so nervous that I found myself shaking in the tiny little spot where I stood at the back of the crowd. Who? Me? Was he really talking to me? George wondered to himself as he looked around the crowd of hungry eyes. Another voice yelled out, "That's George. He's from the old Partain place." Oh my, I couldn't believe it. My dreams are all coming true. I tell you, I was so happy. I danced a little jig right there on the spot. From my very first day on the job, I ran those cattle like no one ever had seen before. It was hard work. Some days I was so tired that I would pass up supper and go to bed early. I couldn't tell you how many ribbons I won at competitions around the world. Everyone was telling everyone how great I was and how there would never be another like me. Every time I rode into town, people would cry out, "Look, there's George. Isn't he the greatest?" About that time, a frown crossed George's face. "What's wrong?" asked Samantha. "Oh, I was just thinking about the way it used to be. Those days were the best. It's such a shame that we have to get." George suddenly jumped up and ran to the door. "Come here quick," George tells Samantha. "Who? What's wrong?" Samantha asks as she peers out the opening in the door. "Listen," says George. "Do you hear that?" "You mean the footsteps?" asks Samantha. Yes, yes. Quickly, try to look your best and smile." "But why, George?" asked Samantha. "Do you remember when I was telling you about the window of opportunity?" asked George. "Yes, but what's that got to do with the footsteps?" Samantha asks. "Look, look," exclaims George as he starts dancing around, prancing back and forth. "Do you know who that is?" "Oh my, I knew it was her." "I just knew it," says George. "That lady is the rescuer, and this is a window of opportunity for a brand new life. One where we will always be loved and cared for, even when we get too old to work. Samantha wasn't up to smiling. Only a few hours before, the family that she had thought cared so very much for her handed her to the old man and left without even saying so much as goodbye. Still, she knew that George was a wise old soul and didn't want her new friend to be disappointed in her. So she did her best and gave a couple of half-hearted hops, barely getting her front feet off the ground. All of the commotion from the others in the rooms down the hall was hurting Samantha's ears. She was trying to mimic George's actions, but the noise was just too much. Samantha stood by the door with her head half dropped as the rescuer walked by, looking into the rooms. One by one, she would take down the cards that were hanging on the doors and peer in at the faces staring back at her. George whispered to Samantha, "Get up as close as you can to the door. It's hard for them to see us through all of that wire." Samantha didn't move. Her heart was broken and she was losing all hope in humanity. Slowly, the footsteps began to fade away and George curled up in the corner at the back of the room. A look of darkness filled his face. Samantha, feeling that the window of opportunity had closed, joined George on the rags that a kind woman had thrown in earlier onto the cold concrete floor. "George, listen, she's coming back," said Samantha. "What's it, Sam?" he asked. "Listen," says Samantha, "it's the footsteps again." George knew all too well what the second set of footsteps meant. It was usually one of the workers coming back to choose who would go to the special room, the room at the very end of the hallway, the room where so many others have went in the days that have passed while he was there. George stared to shiver as he lay in his puddle of rags. "What's wrong?" Samantha asks. George only curled into a tight ball of fur, trying to be invisible and tell Samantha to get behind him. The worker, a scruffy-looking man with unkempt hair and scars on his hands, walks back and pulls a card from the door. "Is it this one, old, grey and spotted? Looks like some sort of a shepherd or something." "What's the name on the card?" a voice yells in the distance. "It looks like George," the worker yells back. "Bring the card up here and get a leash. I think that's the one, but let's make sure." The worker takes the card and George listens as the footsteps fade down the hall. George says to Samantha, "I will be leaving you shortly, but before I go, I want you to know something. Even though your family abandoned you and you are feeling like there is no hope left, even though you are feeling like the world has turned its back on you, I want you to know one thing. You will always be my friend and I love you." "But George, where are you going?" asks Samantha. George, knowing that his friend will be left all alone, at least for the night, tries his best to keep Samantha in good spirits. So he says to her, "Child, I am going to a place where the butterflies abound in new colors. The birds in the trees sing in perfect harmony and will come down at night as they lull you to sleep. The grass is ever so soft and is the brightest green that you could ever imagine. There will be friends from my past and some that I have yet to meet. We'll play in the mud all day and then like magic the warm breeze will blow and our fur will be so shiny and clean just so we can do it again. I'll have my own herd of cattle to run with whenever I want. Everyone there will feast like a king of kings and never go hungry. There will be sticks and bones and toys of every kind to chew on in never ending supply. Oh, George, I am so happy for you, exclaimed Samantha. What is this place? It sounds perfect. Can I go too? Hearing the return of the footsteps, George says, Samantha, my dear, you'll see it one day, but now I must go. The worker opens the door and puts the leash around George's neck. As George is being led away, he yells to Samantha, remember, keep your head high and your heart warm. As the lights dim for the night, Samantha burrows down into the dusty racks. She closes her eyes and thinks about her friend George and what a wonderful place he must be in now. The sadness of being alone for the first time in her life has brought a misty feeling to her eyes. She dozes off to sleep only to be awakened by a noise in the distance. She jumps up, looking all around for the little girl that always tucked her in under the covers and placed her head, even so gently, on the pillow. Samantha realizes that her happy world is now gone forever as she tries to hide her big brown eyes in the warmth of her body. Daylight shines through the window across the hall, and Samantha wonders what the new day will bring. Will a new friend come to stay with her in the room? Will she be lucky enough to go to the land of rainbows and colored waterfalls? Would her family realize how special she is and come back to get her? At the end of the hallway, Samantha can hear the voices of the humans. Footsteps can be heard, so Samantha waddles over to the door, trying to see who it is. Everyone is dancing and parading back and forth in their doorways. It's the rescue lady, a voice cries out. This one right here, she screams down the hall. Grab a card and bring her up, another voice yells back. The rescue lady opens the door and puts Samantha in her arms as a tear trickles down her face. I'm so sorry, little one. We were told that another rescue person was going to get you out of here yesterday. I'm so sorry you had to stay in this awful place all alone last night. Samantha, having no idea what was going on, dug her claws into the rescue lady's shoulders as they walked outside. It felt so good to see the clouds and feel the fresh, clean air blowing across her face. The rescue lady carried Samantha over to her car and put a brand new pink harness on her and let her ride up front in the seat as they went on their journey. Is she taking me back to my little girl? Samantha thought. The car stopped a while later and the rescue lady leaned over to get Samantha and carried her into the house. It's all yours, little lady, the rescue lady says to Samantha as she sits her down in the floor amongst the others. Samantha, feeling a bit overwhelmed with so many strange faces, couldn't understand what was happening. She slowly walked over the sofa and lay down in front of it. She lays her big round head down as a tiny little fellow walks over and says, That sure is a pretty harness. Samantha looks up at him and starts to speak as a voice from the other room yells out. If you think that's pretty, you ought to see all the sparklers on my collar. What? No, it couldn't be. Samantha gets up and peeks around the edge of the sofa. Her tail now curled so tight that you could open a wine bottle with it. George, George, oh George, it's so good to see you, my friend. And in the end, Samantha had yet to realize her life was just beginning. Who knows what the future has in store for Samantha? George and Dino, the tiny mite which sleeps through the wintry days, guarding the stone wall of fire.